What you're about to watch is not just a debate over a bill, it's a revealing moment about how power works in Washington. A young woman was murdered, survivors are demanding the truth, and Congress responded with deflection and political theater, until one lawmaker refused to play along.
Motion to table is agreed to. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kayla's mother is watching this hearing. She cannot figure out for the life of her what Jeffrey Epstein has to do with her daughter and this bill. Kayla was murdered in Maryland. Where was the ranking member then? What efforts did he make to ensure that no other senseless murder like this happened? Using the life and death of Kayla Hamilton to score political points against the president is absolutely despicable. I'm going to read from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General, the report that was issued on March 25th of this year, entitled, "ICE cannot effectively monitor the location and status of all unaccompanied alien children after federal custody," because that's what the point of this bill is to address. Quote, "After meeting with more than 140 individuals from DHS and other federal agencies, we determined U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement cannot effectively monitor the location and status of all unaccompanied alien children once released or transferred from the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services custody. From fiscal years 2019 to 2023, ICE transferred more than 448,000 UACs to HHS. Most were released to sponsors. However, more than 31,000 of the 448,000 children release addresses were blank, undeliverable, or missing apartment numbers. ICE also was not always aware of the location for UACs who fled HHS custody. We found that ICE did not effectively oversee UACs subject to removal by not issuing notices to appear to all UACs to generate assignment of immigration court dates by the U.S. Department of Justice. As of January 2025, ICE had not served NTAs on more than 233,000 unaccompanied minors. As of October 2024, ICE reported more than 43,000 UACs served NTAs failed to appear for scheduled court dates. Finally, ICE was not always notified of UAC status and safety unless an allegation or tip was reported. These issues occurred because ICE did not always receive information about UAC's sponsor locations from HHS and other federal agencies. ICE also had limited staffing to monitor USC's cases and did not have a policy for all officers to monitor UAC's cases. Without an ability to monitor the location and status of UACs, ICE is unable to facilitate court appearances and has no assurance UACs are safe from trafficking, exploitation, forced labor, or involvement in criminal activities that may pose a risk to local communities. Kayla Hamilton. Kayla Hamilton. Kayla Hamilton.
Write it down for me.
The reason for what this bill is about, Kayla Hamilton was brutally murdered by Walter Javier Martinez, a UAC who was released to a sponsor, an individual who was responsible for housing and supervising the UAC by HHS before any background checks were completed. Kayla Hamilton was brutally murdered by Walter Javier Martinez, a UAC who was released to a sponsor by HHS before any background checks were completed. It is critically important that we stay on task with the issue that is before us today, and that is addressing the brutal murder of Kayla Hamilton and ensuring that this kind of a tragedy never happens again. This is not about Jeffrey Epstein. If the folks on the other side of the aisle would like to bring a bill about Jeffrey Epstein, we can address that. Do not sully Kayla Hamilton's name or her memory by turning this into a political sideshow. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this very well-crafted, important bill. It is critical that we be able to protect people like Kayla Hamilton. With that, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. All said. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
I'd like to strike the last word, and I'd like to yield my remaining time to Congressman Moskowitz.
Thank you, the gentlelady from California. I have breaking news for the gentlelady from Wyoming. The the idea of Jeffrey Epstein, that we could bring it, I just want to let you know that there's a gentleman that sits right behind you. His name is Thomas Massey. He has brought a discharge petition that, you may not have heard about it, he's brought a discharge petition that would release all of the Epstein files. Because I was listening to your speech and I was listening to Van Drew's speech, and it was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release the files. Right? Like, that was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release it.
Would you yield? Very briefly, would you yield very briefly? My words were about Kayla Hamilton.
Yeah, no, when I'm done, I'll yield to you. When I'm done. So there's a discharge petition that would release the files. The reason why we talk about it in all these hearings is that we can't believe that you were all for releasing the files until the mothership beamed down the instructions to not release the files. And then all of a sudden, it was a hoax. It's not real. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, right? We're going to send the private attorney to move Ghislaine Maxwell, right? We're going to do all of these things. We're just very surprised. And obviously, Mr. Massey has stuck to his principles, and okay, he's had a couple of others do that as well. Everybody else ran for cover. And so, do you want to release the files? And then I'll yield. I mean, it's a yes or no. And then will you sign the Massey petition?
Will you yield?
I will.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to yield back to the. I got to yield back. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to yield. I want to take some of my time because it's also very simple. Like I said before, release the files, put it out there, pop the balloon, let out all this air. I too would like to get to the point where we could discuss the underlying bill. There's a lot of problems with the underlying bill. But when we met with the survivors, they said, we want transparency, we want action, we want accountability. We don't know why there's a flyover happening at the exact same time we're holding a press conference. We don't know why members outside of those in the Women's Caucus and a few other brave folks don't want to meet with us and hear our story. We don't know why we're getting thrown under the bus and treated as if we are perpetrators. And I don't know why either. We come into this committee, the Judiciary Committee, which is supposed to be about justice. And then we get subjective amnesia. And it's like, well, only justice for certain people. I don't know. For people who look like or look a certain way, speak a certain way, have a certain amount of money in their bank account. I thought we have one set of laws that everyone's supposed to follow. The survivors of the Epstein crimes seem to think the same too. And yet we have multiple sets of rules. So if you release the files, we can see whose rules, who's allowed to follow. We heard from survivors who said, Jeffrey Epstein said, I own the banks, I own the government. I can do what I want. We are talking about the Epstein files related to this bill because the man had multiple passports. He was traveling to far and away places like Monaco, Austria, Slovakia, Paris, Mexico, Morocco, involved orchestrating an international ring of trafficking young women, young enough to be someone's child, someone's grandchild. So vote on the amendments to release the files to give the survivors what they want: transparency, action, and accountability. And with that, I yield back my time.
What unfolded in this committee hearing was a collision between grief, politics, and accountability, and it exposed a deeper truth about how tragedy is often used not to fix systems, but to shut down uncomfortable conversations. The gentle lady from Wyoming centered her remarks on the brutal murder of Kayla Hamilton. That loss is real. The pain felt by Kayla's family is real. No one disputes that. But what became clear very quickly is that Kayla's name was being invoked not to pursue comprehensive reform, but to control the narrative and limit the scope of accountability. Her argument relied heavily on a Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report outlining serious failures in how the federal government tracks unaccompanied immigrant children after they are released from custody. The report describes missing addresses, poor interagency communication, staffing shortages, and failures to ensure court appearances. These are real problems. Democrats have long acknowledged that the system is under-resourced and in need of reform. But identifying bureaucratic failures is not the same as addressing their root causes. And it is certainly not the same as using one horrific tragedy to dismiss every other discussion about justice and accountability. That's where Congressman Jared Moskowitz changed the dynamic of the room. Moskowitz didn't minimize Kayla Hamilton's life or the need for reform. Instead, he exposed the selective outrage on display. For months, many of the same lawmakers insisting that this hearing is not about Jeffrey Epstein were publicly demanding the release of Epstein-related files until party leadership reversed course. Suddenly, transparency became a distraction. Suddenly, accountability became inconvenient. That shift matters. Jeffrey Epstein was not just a criminal. He was a symbol of how wealth, influence, and political protection can shield predators from consequences. Survivors have been clear about what they want: transparency, action, and accountability. Not silence, not excuses, not another moment where powerful people are quietly protected while victims are told to move on. This wasn't about derailing the underlying bill. Moskowitz acknowledged there are legitimate concerns and flaws that deserve debate. What he refused to accept was a double standard, one where government demands perfection from immigrants and the powerless while offering endless grace and secrecy to the politically connected. Survivors who met with lawmakers described being ignored, dismissed, and treated as liabilities instead of human beings. They talked about being thrown under the bus while institutions designed to deliver justice suddenly developed selective amnesia. And they asked a question that should unsettle every American. Why does justice seem to depend on who you are, how much money you have, or who you know? Democrats understand something fundamental here. Justice cannot be conditional. If we truly believe in the rule of law, then it must apply equally to federal agencies, to politicians, to billionaires, and to anyone who used power to exploit others. You can care deeply about Kayla Hamilton and still demand transparency in the Epstein case. You can protect children while also standing with survivors. You can fix broken systems without turning grief into a political shield. That is the real lesson of this exchange. This hearing exposed the difference between performative outrage and principled accountability, between using victims as props and actually listening to them, between fear-based politics and evidence-based reform. If this breakdown helped you understand what was really happening beneath the surface, support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and sharing it with others who care about justice over theatrics. Stay engaged, because accountability only exists when people refuse to look away.